Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another episode in the Lawn to No Dig Garden series. Today I'm turning this boring patch of lawn into a thriving no dig vegetable garden, starting with some DIY raised beds made from old timber and a whole lot of cardboard. No fancy tools and no big budget, just a simple low cost method to grow food and smother weeds at the same time. This is part of my ongoing series where I convert my lawn, one bed at a time, into a productive garden space. So if you're into DIY, gardening, or just want to grow more food with less effort, stick around and I'll show you exactly how I did it. Alright, so step 1, mark out where you want your beds. This helps use the space efficiently, plan for pathways, and figure out exactly how much material you'll need. I originally thought about using new timber, but that didn't really fit the spirit of this project and it would have cost around $200. Instead, I just used some old fence rails I got for free and they worked just fine. Once you've marked out your beds, level the area if needed. This spot was already fairly flat, so I didn't do much, but along the edge where the beds meet the concrete path, I used a spade to shave off a thin layer of lawn. That way the timber will sit level or slightly below the path to reduce weeds coming up between them. I spent a bit of time removing the old nails from the fence rails. Definitely not the most exciting part of the process, but worth it to make them safe and easy to work with. Once you've got your measurements, go ahead and cut your timber to length. I like to leave an extra 50mm or so to allow for any angled cuts on the ends. Since I was using old fence rails and none were long enough on their own, I paired them up to make the most of what I had. Now that all your timber's cut, lay it out in place where you marked out your beds. It's a good way to double check your measurements and make sure you haven't missed any pieces. This also gives you a feel for the final layout, so take a moment to make sure you're happy with it before moving on. If your garden bed is square, you can skip this step, but if you've got some quirky angles like I do, now's the time to mark out your miters. This isn't fancy joinery, so it doesn't need to be perfect. With the timber in place, just run a straight edge parallel to the board it'll butt into and mark the angle with a pencil. Miters help strengthen the joins by increasing the surface area and reduce gaps where weeds could sneak through. I'm using a miter saw and gradually adjusting the angle until it's correct, but a handsaw would do the job just fine. I'm using these short pieces of timber as sister boards to join the paired up fence rails together. I clamped everything in place, then used screws to tie it all together. Once the boards were tied together and in place with their miters cut, I could see they weren't sitting quite right. So I used a spade and a pickaxe to remove more soil, accounting for the cardboard layer I'd be adding and getting rid of any high spots to keep everything below the concrete edge. With that done, it's time to add your cardboard. This step is pretty important. Do it well and you'll save yourself a lot of weeding later. If you're using old boxes, remove any tape or staples first, like I'm doing here. The bigger the box, the better. Fewer joins means fewer gaps for weeds to sneak through. I typically use large boxes for the main layers, and then fill any smaller gaps or cover any rips with the smaller boxes I have. This tree was hanging over the corner of the bed, so I quickly pulled it out. I was planning to remove these trees later anyway to make room for another garden bed, but doing it now is going to make it easier to work on this bed for the rest of the project. Once your cardboard is down, you can assemble your beds. It rained overnight, so the cardboard's nice and soft, making it easier to mold under the beds and bend around the edges. If it doesn't rain, just wet it down with a hose or a watering can. I used 100mm construction screws for the thicker timber and 50mm screws for the thinner pieces. Just make sure all of your fasteners are suitable for outdoor use. With your beds assembled, you can add your compost. For these beds, I'm using the last of a compost from my first no-dig garden, a mix of sawdust and paunch grass that's really nice stuff. Once this is gone, I'll be making all of my compost on site. These boards are 150mm high and I'm filling them not quite to the top, so there's about 125mm material in here. That's plenty to grow veggies in and to help block the light for any weeds underneath. And there you have it, 2 new no-dig raised beds made mostly from free materials and a bit of hard work. The cardboard will break down over time, feeding the soil and keeping the weeds at bay. I'll be adding mulch to all the pathways once I get some more on hand. That'll complete the weed suppression and give it a nice finished look. This is just the latest step in converting my lawn into a productive food garden. I'll be planting these beds out soon and showing you how they perform over the growing season. If you're enjoying this lawn to garden transformation, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. There's plenty more to come as I keep building out this space. If you've got questions about the no-dig method or recycled materials, drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.